Corporate bullying, a toxic workplace environment, and dealing with conflict in the workplace are some of the health-harming mistreatments that many women deal with. In her book, Thrive, Journey of Hope and Resilience, author and South African corporate leader Tumi Lebaka shares her experienced advice for women entering the corporate job market who have set their eyes on leadership roles and offers some valuable insights into the challenges that they face. She also shares her own personal experiences and how to manage your emotions, wellness and mental health in the journey. Tumi joins us to talk more about her book. Tumi, welcome. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Good morning to you and all the viewers.
I mean, juggling a career, relationships, family, it certainly does put a lot of strain on any woman who is still thriving to become a leader in the workplace. Personally, I don't think there is anything, there's any miracle recipe to balance it all, but it's something else. And how do we achieve that so-called balance without compromising on something?
Well, Leanne, it's a very intricate balance. You know, we can never have a full balanced life, but we need to be able to identify our priorities in that period and then try to be able to say, how do I avail myself? How do I understand that this is what needs me for now without dropping the ball on another? So I talk about balance in the book and juggling all, and also being able to understand that as women, we have resources that we can tap to, particularly if you want to go into leadership. You know, that you can't be superwoman at times, and it's okay to rely on others in and around you.
Yeah, it's also important to highlight stories of people that have been through this, such as yourself, and that's what you go about and do. Is, I think it's quite an honest documentation of some of the unhealthy, turbulent work environments that are out there. Perhaps you want to give us some instances that you can recall that you had been through.
You know, Leanne, it is, research has shown that in workplaces, toxic work environment worldwide is between 50 to 30 to 55%. And personally, I've been a very young leader, expecting to be embraced, and found myself to be in the most toxic work environments. I found myself at some point in a place of depression. I found myself as a leader being isolated. I found myself at a place where I was unfairly suspended, you know, and I felt it was important to document this in a book so that women like myself and those who are coming up the corporate ladder at least have tools on how to navigate. Even, you know, where we are at the moment, you know, South Africa is still a patriarchal society, and there's still a lot of gender bias and inequality that we find in the workplace, particularly in certain industries. And this week particular, being, you know, an International Women's Day, it's important to start, you know, shining a spotlight on some of the issues that women go through in the workplace: corporate bullying, narcissism, blocks that are put in for women not to progress because at times it's a gender issue. And I'm also talking about books on ways to support each other as women and find ways to start creating a more healthier work environment for ourselves, because we are leading a path not only for ourselves, but for the many women who are coming behind us. So we need to make sure that as we progress in the workplace, we set good examples, we deal away with the toxicity and all the various challenges that one finds in the workplace.
Yeah, and there are numerous challenges, and I think we're documenting it quite nicely with some of the key points of what it's like to work in a toxic environment and what one should look out for, because, you know, it is a big problem. And I can imagine many people watching this interview, and I don't just think women, because as much as we are talking about women in the workplace, I think toxic environments affect absolutely everybody, and it doesn't just affect your work life. It doesn't. The reality is that you take whatever you spend, because you spend most of your time at work and with your work colleagues and in this environment, you take that into your personal and social life. And this is it has a devastating impact on you. You did write about that people who are unnaturally happy. Let me find the words here. You were saying that unnaturally happy are most of the times the leader of the pack in instigating and even causing trouble, because this is the only time they get recognized, whereas people use this as a way of getting attention. Talk about that.
You know, I still find, even now in my leadership journey, that unhealed people tend to hurt other people. And because there is, let me call for a lack of a better word, toxicity inside, it has to come out somewhere. And it spills in the workplace. You find bullying in the workplace. You find people forming cliques in the workplace with an objective to possibly sabotage. And it's important as human beings and possibly as HR to have health and wellness programs in the workplace to try see how do we have more healthier employees emotionally, psychologically, because if we do not start creating the healthy environment, it affects businesses, it affects results, it affects productivity and outcomes. So I really believe going forward, this is one of the areas that we need to look into. How do we start creating a healthy work culture from the bottom up and top down, so that we are able to achieve the objectives in South Africa as a corporate?
Yeah. Let's talk about the top down and bottom up culture that you say that leaders should opt for and adopt.
Well, I believe, you know, Leanne, that in most cases, if you find leadership being too harsh, it cascades down. And if you find toxicity at the bottom, it cascades down. It becomes a culture in the organization. Similarly, if you find a leader who is embracing, who takes the employees and staff with, it permeates throughout the organization. So as they always say, it trickles from the top. And it's important that as a leader, you become very intentional on the type of environment you find yourself in. Personally, in my workplaces where I work with, I normally take the people with, and I expect the culture that I'm bringing of productivity from top down to trickle down, because people are able to pick up on your vision, on your energy, and that permeates within the organization. So it's important to have organizational assessment of the culture that is currently operating in the workplace and be able to determine, is this a culture that will take us to the next level? Is this even a good work environment that will increase productivity, that will allow people to come out of their shells? You know, there are employees that come to a point where you volunteer, you go an extra mile because you feeling this is home, you feeling you are valued, you feeling that your contribution is creating to the purpose of the organization. So it's important as leaders from senior upwards to be able to describe the culture and live the culture.
How important is support in managing your wellness in the workplace? Because, I mean, there are certain workplaces, and I know that many of them have got wellness centers and people to speak to, and, you know, places that they can go and just sort of be. But how well do they work? How well do they really work? And do most corporates actually utilize these services?
You know, Leanne, let me just share an example. I remember at one point where I was highly stressed in the workplace, I ended up at a wellness clinic.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I had biases as to who to find there. I found doctors, I found lawyers, I found senior people. And it is at that particular time that I realized that we go through a lot. And yes, there are a lot of EAP, employee wellness programs that we have in the workplace, but it's important as HR, as leaders, to encourage these and not to have these stigmatized, to promote good mental wellness and to always have conversations around it, because this is one of the things that is still stigmatized. And statistics do show that particularly after COVID, you still have a lot of depression, employees that are depressed, be it at a lower level or a higher level. So it's important that these programs are there, these programs are accessible, that there is confidentiality that is applied with regards to all of this, but also for support in the workplace over and above just the wellness, to have mentors in the workplace, to have coaching in the workplace if we are to build a sustainable, productive, and a healthy culture in the workplace.
Yeah, it really is important. And I suppose people also within the confines of their office, they feel, you know, should I go into the wellness and speak to the work ones? I mean, how, you know, what did it look like? Is it private? Will my story be kept, you know, under wraps? And all of those kind of things, I imagine, press down on people. But it's important to use it. It really is. And I mean, getting it externally, I suppose, would be very costly as well to find that help. We would always talk about this pull her down syndrome. That was always something that we heard in the workplace. But now the buzzword is more that toxic workplace. How does this leave one demotivated and elevate stress levels in lives?
You know, research shows once again that the signs of a toxic workplace start affecting the health. And you start getting more and more people starting to get sick. And for me, the pull head down syndrome is one of the areas of unhealthy employees or unhealthy individuals, because if you are sure as to who you are, your contribution, your focus would therefore be in creating value. But what you find in toxic environments at the moment is people instigating pain, people instigating negativity, you know, a lot of gossip mongering, a lot of subtle bullying, a lot of narcissistic and gaslighting in the workplace that affects the mental wellness and how an employee shows up. When a person was very excited and about the work, they start pulling back a bit because they now start getting scared of how the treatment in the organization starts affecting them. So there is a bit of change, you know, from the pull down to the toxicity. But toxicity, the pull down syndrome is really a result of what the toxicity that you find in the workplace.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it touches, it really does. It hits home, and I imagine it's hitting a lot of people listening to this. You have in the book, and I know we've been showing snippets of it as we've been chatting, but I'd love to sort of hear from you some of the physical symptoms to recognize when you are working in a toxic environment. Because sometimes, you know, you're so used to it, you think it's normal, and you kind of, you just get on with it. But you know, it's there, but the symptoms, you perhaps need to look out for them. How would you describe them? What should we be looking for?
You know, one of the areas that you need to look out for, are you excited to go to work on a Monday?
Wow. I'm wondering if anyone will say, yes, I can't wait for the weekend to end. Dying to go to work on Monday morning. Maybe choose another day of the week.
But among others is the anxiety that you start feeling on Monday, on Sunday evening, or even on a Tuesday morning when you need to go to work. anxiety, the level of the depression that you start having. It also manifests itself, you start getting gut issues, headaches, a bit restlessness. So these are some of the areas that have been documented by health experts as being signs that you could be in a toxic work environment. Getting into the workplace, having a sense of fear, having a sense of not to know what to expect because, your leader this day could be shouting at you and tomorrow is smiling back at you. So those are some of the symptoms that you may find in the workplace. And these are the symptoms that as leaders, we need to look out for. But we need to start having more and more conversations because I would believe that some employees are going through this. The policies are not allowing for such discussions. And it's important that as HR, as leaders, we start having frank discussions in our workplace if we want to start fixing what is going wrong, or if we want to start looking into changing the culture in the workplace.
Tumi, thank you. Thanks for talking to us. Tumi Lebaka, who's the author of Thrive, A Journey of Hope and Resilience, talking to us about her book and women balancing their wellness and corporate leadership goals as well. Thanks again, Tumi. Thank you. All right, that's it.